That guy's getting his 1 ounce of exercise a day, I guess. Guess at least he's isolated. Anyway, another episode of Terrible Boat Chat. Alain Sign, Rio Olympian, multiple medalist in 49er Championships. One of the most natural sailors I've seen, and he's just chatting through why he chose to go skiff sailing, why he likes crewing, the progression in the 49er, and now his career as a successful 49er coach, where on his roster he has the #1 FX team in the world. Hopefully it fills another 20 minutes of your time. Today with me, I've got Alain Sign, a good friend from many years ago. I think if I had to describe Alain's sailing, I'd say he's probably one of the most natural looking sailors I've ever seen. He always seemed, right from early days in toppers through to when I briefly sailed alongside him in 49ers, to have a unique feel for boats and making them go fast. And that's been reflected in an incredible career on the water and nowadays off the water. So welcome, Alain, to this little video podcast.
Thank you very much. That's quite the intro. Yeah, I remember sailing against you in a topper, and that was a long time ago. Looking back, I had a thought today about when it actually was, and I think that was back in 2000 or something.
Yeah, 2000, 2001, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Scary.
Yeah, getting old.
And then thinking now that some of the girls that I coach at the moment haven't even been born in 2000, so it's we're cracking on the old age front. But
one of the things is, obviously I'm doing these little series of webinar / podcast, not even sure what to call them, terrible sailing chat, that's what I really called it.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons you popped up as an excellent person to get on is your link to the 800 fleet. And of course, I gave you a big up for your amazing sailing career, including a trip to the Olympics. But top of that list surely has to be an RS800 National Championship. So tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Again, another topper sailor and 29er sailor, Stevie Wilson, called me up and was pretty keen to get me in the front of the boat. And I've always kind of dabbled in one at Stokes Bay. Like when it's really windy, I've always kind of jumped at the chance to jump in one, because I find they're a really good fun boat for downwind, sending it hard. And Stevie called me up, and I think we did a warm-up regatta that was done at Eastbourne. Mm-hmm. And I think the first jibe I did, I fell out the side of the boat because I hadn't quite worked out that it's not as wide as the 49er, so that was interesting and always fun. But then went on into Weymouth, and kind of seemed like we smashed it. I think we won pretty much every race at that regatta, but and definitely got some stick in the bar for that week. 800 is a great boat on, and the community of it off the water is great fun as well.
Well, I'm sure Stevie was very grateful, because I know he'd had a few years before that where he'd racked up second places, and then all it took was to get a Mr. Sign in the front of the boat, and it was a bullet train the whole way through those Weymouth Nationals for you guys. So
with Stevie, myself and him got on pretty well. I'm quite a relaxed guy to sail with, I believe, and I think I brought that out for him, and kind of he just dealt with the boat speed, and I kind of guided him around the track. And that's a bit different to how when I sailed with Dylan in the 49er, where I had the main sheet of Dylan, and I was a bit more on the boat speed side of things. And so roles, it was quite a good and interesting role for me, because I didn't really do that much tactics, I'd say, in the 49er, whereas in the 800 I'd say I did most of them for upwind and downwind.
No, I know the people who do sail with deck sheeting, like I've seen an interview, I think, with Luke and Emma before, where Emma, obviously without the main sheet to play at wind, it allows you to get your head really out the boat. It's almost like being a tactician on a yacht, where you can fully look around, think about things, and meanwhile the helm is head down at the back, which is a little bit different to the 49er and the boom sheeting, where the crew is pretty much got their foot on the accelerator with the main sheet a lot of the time. So
yeah, it's definitely, the roles change around a little bit, and I think you've got to play your strengths in the boat, I think.
So any plans potentially get back in an 800 now it's crew sheeting, or even have a go helming?
Helming scares me. I like the front end of the boat and pulling stuff, but no, I think I'd like to. I almost tried to find a boat for the Europeans this year in the Nationals. I think with Dan Henderson.
Yeah.
He's one of my good friends as well, and I think I'd love to jump back in one and have a go in a competition, or even just kind of Sunday, Saturday racing. They're great boats to sail and to blast around in. And pick up on one thing though. You said helming scares you, but I can remember just about back in toppers, and you were a very credible sailor just on your own in the boat. Had several top results in toppers. Certainly one of the fastest sailors, especially off the wind. At what point did you decide that you wanted to be a crew, and that you wanted to move away from single-handers? Because no doubt you could have been a very good radial sailor if you wanted to, and a good helm as well. How come you moved in the crewing skiff direction? I think from toppers, I really liked helming in that, and I remember training with a guy called Steve Jackson, who was kind of one of the guys that we used to just go training to go from Stokes Bay to Cowes and back, upwinds and downwinds, and just do loads of downwinding. And the guy Nick Harrison used to kind of beat us, who used to come and sail in a laser and like just kind of push us around the course, really trying to get us going fast the whole time. And so that was really liked the helming, that side of things. And then I think I wasn't really that big to jump into a laser, because I saw Steve Jackson go into that a little bit earlier than me, and he was always quite small, and I was only, when I was 18, I was only 66 kilos. And then Tristan Jakes, he had been sailing at 29. I think he learned to sail at 29 when he was beginning to sail, so probably one of the hardest boats to jump in and learn to sail, and he jumped in from a really young age. So I just gave him a call up and knew that he was a really good helm, and I could kind of learn to crew quite quickly, I think. So it kind of just fell that way. I'd never really have looked at helming since. I've looked at like the Moth and the Musto. The Musto skiff I really liked, and but I think I just like being athletic around the boat, having to be quite gentle and trying to understand what the boat needs, and I just like that aspect of being kind of the boat speed guy and trying to make it go quick.
There's a unique feeling, isn't there, to a skiff, even past foiling, just that feeling of the boat just skipping along the waves, and you can really feel the speed in a planing boat.
It is, and when I'm trying to, because now I'm coaching skiffs and the FXs, I find it easier sometimes to jump in into the boat with the girls and actually kind of try and explain it whilst I'm in the boat. And I think that's kind of a good benefit that some of us skiff coaches, when we do jump into boats, we can get our point across a lot quicker. And
talking about getting into skiffs, can you talk us about the first transition into the 49er? And because it's quite a beast of a boat compared to the 29.
Pretty scary to begin with. I think weight was an issue, and that was kind of always a thing through my whole Olympic cycle, was trying to get enough weight on so then you don't get injured or you're big enough for the boat. And I actually sailed a 470 for a year because I wasn't big enough, because I sat around 70 kilos. And then when I thought I was big enough, when I got to like 77, 76 kilos, then I made the transition with Tristan. And it was hard, I think, compared to 29ers, where you've got boat speed and you can kind of boat handle you can go out in 25 knots. You rock up in Palma is always the kind of your winter training ground. and you rock up in Parma and you just realise how good the good guys are, like Chris Draper and Simon Hiscox, and then you've got German teams and Danish teams, and that just have put so many hours in. You kind of gives you a new respect for the sport and the skiffs, and I think we definitely took that on board because we were lucky enough to train with Chris and Simon a couple of times, and then Chris and Peter Greenhalgh later on, we campaigned with them. And I think Chris was one that was always pushing and Simon, but they're both pushing for what's the next best thing and how can we get better. And I think Dylan was very good at that, at wanting more and kind of always pushing and what can we do better. And I think that's where everyone now is at. It's about it's not about training more now, it's about training smart and how you can train smarter and how you can make those little gains. And that's where the distances come from now, because everyone can actually sail a 49er pretty well now. And I think it's just comes down to those little details.
You know, I look at the 49er, especially Gold Fleet, and you'd struggle really to pull up anything on the way the guys are sailing the boat, you know, right the way to the back of the fleet. It's, you know, almost everyone's got immaculate boat handling. Everyone's absolutely dropped to the knots, flat out downwind as soon as it's viable. And it's the differences just look so small. You can see it in the results as well, because people, you know, ping around the fleet, and there's there's no such thing as a discard. You know, people are regularly counting, you know, high scores, with the exception of a few notable boats.
And that's I think where I've been working with Paul Brotherton a little bit in the FXs with the true sail kind of things, and that's where and James and Finn have been using that as well. And I think that's where those little details can come in and help you. Like, we've been looking at the clue load and rudder movement and how much heel you have over a given 20 seconds, and we're kind of looking at really small numbers and trying to get the boat more stable using less rudder, tighter leeches, and I think the fleet are definitely getting very clever in how they sail the boats fast now.
It's an incredibly interesting bit of technology, that true sail. I've had a few chats with James Peters at the Hailing Bar about it, and he's probably bored about talking about it. I mean, I went away from sailing and did a few years cycling and time trialing, and there it's a very analytical sport, and you can, in terms of your numbers, I guess you'll know from talking to your dad, who's, you know, prominent on the local cycling scene as well. But it you know, cycling in that aspect it's a nice sport to follow, because everything's so quantifiable. And you can work on your drag, you can work on your power, and you can put numbers on both the things. But and that's true to a certain extent in yacht racing. There's a lot of data collected there, but dinghy sailing has lagged so far behind other sports. And I always found it frustrating going out on a amateur level and training, and it's always so grey, the training you do. It's hard to quantify the improvement you've made.
You can go out and train by yourself and go for hours, and I remember, I think me and Paul sailed the 505 in the summer, and we were just laughing at how unstable we are sailing the boat when we're shouting at the gales to get a number at 150 or something travel per minute, and then I think we were up at 300, and we were like, wow, we've got a long. It's amazing how hard you're pushing when you're coaching for teams to get to a certain number, and what ideal is. So it's a good bit of kit.
And how have you found this transition from sailor to coach? Because like I said, I've always viewed you as a very natural sailor. You've always looked very comfortable in a boat, and I imagine in some ways that's hard to translate in words to sailors. You know, how have you found that kind of, and especially with them being Dutch, they're a bit of a language barrier perhaps.
Yeah. Luckily, they all speak better English than me, so I'm onto a winner there. But I kind of got shoved in at the deep end where Rick Peacock asked me along, and I kind of was then got put in coaching the FX girls, and then I guess that was my first instinct. Well, first kind of role in Parma back in, I think, 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, and had the manager come out on the water with me and he let me run a session, and then I came in, and he was pretty impressed. And I think I found it quite rewarding in terms of, yes, I struggled sometimes to get my views across and my point across, and then I can either jump in or show them again on video. So I think that's where I'm still developing in terms of how I structure my session a little bit. But I think me being able to jump in with them and help them there is really, really good. And but then I've learned a lot about what I took from the Olympics and my campaigning. I can then transfer into my experience to then the girls that I'm coaching, which I think is.
So for the people listening, who are the FX sailors you've got on your roster?
So we did have, I think, 4 or 5 teams, and now we had the Olympic trials back in May in Weymouth, and now I'm coaching Annemiek Beckering and Annette Duets, who have been in the class since the FX came along, and they've been there or thereabouts, finishing 4th, 5th, 6th, sometimes getting medals, and then the girls for about 2 years now. They've done pretty well. They came 2nd at the Europeans, but 1st European because the Brazilians beat them. Mm-hmm. That was a pretty tough event for them because with the Olympic trials, they had to finish 2nd or higher. Yeah. So that was a high pressure event for them. And then we went away over the autumn, trained in Holland, and then went to New Zealand and won the World Championships out in New Zealand. And then we've just come back from Australia, so we had a double World Championships out there, and I think finished 8th, which was, again, could have got a 3rd coming into the medal race, so it was pretty tight.
And they've just moved up to world number 1 ranking as well, I think.
Yeah. So I think that's going to sit there for a while we can't go sailing. Mm. Again, as a team, we appreciate looking at that. We're world number 1, but then when we can go sailing, we're trying to, again, train smart and trying to get everything we can out of our project. And it's a little bit frustrating. The motivation and the drive right now is kind of a weird space for Olympic sailors. I think it feels like we've just finished the Olympics right now, and we've got a big blank canvas, and we're not sure what to do with ourselves because we live our days with structure and goals every day, and it's a weird feeling to suddenly go, you're not allowed to go sailing. Yeah. So then they've been ringing me up the last 2 weeks, like, what can we do? And it's trying to teach them to just chill out a little bit and slow down and kind of stay on top of your fitness, but relax a little bit.
Yeah, well, I really hope, all the athletes are, my heart goes out to them who've qualified for the Olympics and have now got another 12 months of what feels like limbo. And I'm sure it sounds a little bit trivial when there's a lot of people in the world who are really struggling, with the virus and everything to worry about sports. But, it's something that people have committed their whole lives to. So it isn't a trivial impact to the sailors, and I'm sure they all agree that the right thing is being done by the authorities. But no, it certainly does turn your world up down. But one thing is for sure, and that's that the sailors who come out on top will be the ones who make the best use of their time on the water and who are focused and can refocus. And I think there's some of the lessons that sailing teach you for life in general. And this is one of those things that just happens in life sometimes. It's out of your control, and fingers crossed the girls can deal with that. Yeah,
it's like you said, it's control what you can at that point. Very cliche thing, but I think it is control what you can and come up with a smart plan to move forward when we can actually go sailing and use our time wisely. You don't want to be, like in this period now, be not motivated and going on the water and just going through the motions. You want to be, I find, what I learned from my previous cycle is going on the water and actually ticking boxes off. Why are we actually going on the water today? And unless you can't find that answer, then Sometimes no point actually going underwater; it causes more harm than good. And I think that's again another way of trying to train smart.
I think that's one of the big differences between amateur sailing and professional sailing. I mean, I go out a lot of time and we'll just launch, we'll go for a blast, go up and down, come back to the beach. It's, you know, what was the goal today? Just have fun. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And, you know, that's what keeps people engaged with the sport. But if you're doing it professionally...
I think that's, again, like if professional, you can't waste days, I think. Whereas amateur sailing days, I think you want to get out on the water as much as you can when either the wife's nagging at you or the wind's good and the weather's good. I think you want to make the most of it, because then if you are sailing, you are developing skills.
Okay, I'm going to cut it there. Next episode with Alan, we'll cover the Olympics, his experience in Rio, and looking forward to the next Olympic Games, his tips for medalists in the 49er and FX classes. As a guy on the inside, I think his tips should be pretty good had the games gone ahead. And then finally a little bit about, you know, what he's up to with his sailing now and plans for the future. So that'll be on the channel in a couple of days once I've had time to edit it all up. But hope you've enjoyed that and occupied some of your time, and see you again soon.